Hey folks, thank you for joining. So I'm a guy who is not the best at implementing, or maybe I would say I'm stronger at planning. Need to implement and take steps, do things, take risk, those kind of things. So I'm working on my revelations, and of course, the revelation is a whole long story. It's my health journey, which I guess you will pick up in a subsequent video if you're interested in learning more about what has spurred me to start developing materials towards the realization of educating myself and sharing it with myself, the stories of the physical body and what I've learned. Now this here is my story. It's not history, it's not your story, it's just my story and my anecdotal evidence with a little bit of research, a little bit of common sense, and a lot of what I will call experience and consciousness that has come about because of what I'm doing here. Well, these are animals on the photo, so that's just a nice photo from Canva that I think I wanted to use. Is this your story? Um, and I'm asking myself this question. Now, this is a book that I'm publishing on Amazon, and I would like you to support me. Feel free to support me. I would cost this book around $5-6 US, so that I would be able to sustain the the level of activity and get some extrinsic motivation to continue to do the work, because there's a lot to learn about the system of operations, which is what we are calling our physical system of operations, whatever you want to call it, the 3D world, your space, your life, whatever you want to coin and call it. I am about to share what I think is my collective understanding, my perspectives on this whole life. And of course, there's a lot in science that science is discovering that is bringing what is considered to be the realities in foreplay, and that would be very important in where we are in 2024 going forward, because knowledge is what we are asked to get. If you are coming from the Christian side or any religious side, we are asked to seek behind knowledge, because knowledge is a foundational tool that trumps this word belief and faith. You only have to exercise belief and faith when you cannot provide the evidence that is necessary. You cannot tell me you believe that trees grow leaves. You have to go out there, and whether it's a photo or you touch the leaf and you say it's not a feather, you start saying, oh yes, tree has something. Maybe men would have called it leaves. You could call it whatever it want, but there is this green thing that comes out from a tree, and there is this brown thing that comes that holds the leaves together, so you might call it a branch. Whatever the word, it's not important. What's necessary here is that you have your substantial evidence that you as an individual could touch, feel, taste, and actually realize with what is called sensory instruments. The sensory instruments that we have right now are called the five senses. There are more than that, of course, we know that, but the five that we all have learned, they are actually sensory organs. Of course, these are important facilities that we need to kind of readdress, because in our space of thinking about the five senses, we think about them from the point of view of an emotional, intellectual, and not from the point of view of more physical dynamics that is happening right now with robotics and AI. We have to start realizing sensors are one of the most critical components for robotics to really take shape in the current and in the future space. So in this case here, I'm looking at my story, and my sensors are very much a great part of this year, and perspective is quite important in what I'm doing as I discover my entire existence and what I'm doing here in the light of greatness. Of course, you see those animals here, critical to me, because I am again coming from a 33-year background of vegetarianism, from a belief system, from a faith-based system with vegetarianism and lack of knowledge, and I'm moving into knowledge-based system and trying to, of course, bring balance to what I'm saying here for myself. Of course, I do have a disclaimer that this book is a personal exploration of my body and its experiences. It is not intended to provide any advice, not medical, not even informational or educational advice. I just encourage you, the reader, to find some of these concepts in your own research and find it from your own unique perspectives And of course, once you find something from your unique perspective, it is critical that you provide comments, suggestions, and your own explorations. And that is why life is something that we should never argue with one about. Coming from that space, I would have said that I would have been disagreeing or agreeing with persons. We should never agree and we should never disagree. We should explore through the experience and see what is our outputs from a certain experience. And I always now premise and say, maybe you might see the leaf is green and then you go through the process and you realize there are red leaves, yellow leaves, brown leaves. Fine, but you may come back and say the majority of leaves are also green. Now, once you go through that experience of understanding that the majority of leaves are green, you do come out with that perspective on your own, not that you have to believe what someone has said. So it does not discredit what someone has said. That's why we don't agree or disagree. We don't go flipping coins. We go through the experiences that we choose that we want to go through. Some experiences you may say, I don't need to go through that experience. Why should I? And that is why it's not important to react in anything that we are doing going forward. Now this short discourse, and it's not short, it's not a short discourse, but it's this short discourse aimed to just share my journey, my insights, and maybe to inspire someone in their own inspiration and their own reflection. The picture that you see here, of course, is the monkey man picture, what I call it, the monkey man picture, which is I don't subscribe to the word evolution by not by the choice of church or the choice of education from the scientific community. I do not subscribe to the word evolution from what has been, but I do subscribe to the transformation or the consistent DNA patterns being what I would say modified for a newer experience. So from the traditional use of the word evolution, I'm not there with any of this. I believe there is the recreation of everything could be recreated once we touch that part which we call the genetic code, the master code. So we are very good at touching the master code for plants. So we know that we have spliced genes to make plants more resilient against pests, and of course we call them GMO plants. What plant is not modified? That's the question I ask in 2024. Which plant is not modified? There are some plants that have substantially undergone modification, and there are some that has just undergone modification here or there, a little bit, just to take out some bitterness or to take out some colors like the carrots, to maybe make it into a different format, to make the flowers look a little bit different in terms of colors. We see that. We also have modification of some of the original animals. We know that we would have domesticated animals, and over time the interbreeding of animals would have transformed the genetic code. Therefore, we know we have also seen the modification of the genetic code of the human being based upon the environmental factors, such as the foods that we have been provided with over the last 100 years has really what I say created the environment to transform. And then the vaccinations that has also transformed our genetic code. So from one generation to the next, or from one child to the next, you see a whole set of weaknesses, as we say, show up in the human element or the human physical body. And these are the types of conversations that I would like to encourage that others open their minds to. Not the concept of a monkey was just jumping on a tree one day and then the monkey turned into semi monkey, and then it goes from semi monkey to monkey version 1, monkey version 2, and then into what we call human beings today. That is not the perspective. The perspective is the injection or the intersection or the manipulation of the genetic code, whether it is by a physical hand. As you could see the background there is a physical hand going to the genetic code in my image. These are unique images that are not owned by anyone. That is my personal images, of course generated by AI and manipulated by me. So the genetic code has to be manipulated by MAN, by human beings, and the manipulation, of course, of the genetic code could have been done by simply maybe surgical operations. CRISPR is an available tool to manipulate genetic code, or it could have been done through the environmental factors, which would take a longer time for genetic code to happen. But we have seen in the last 100 years how the health, the increasing things like cancers and diseases would have been largely because of failure of certain parts of the genetic code. The genetic codes are being manipulated through the vaccine, the foods, the medication, the environment, and a whole set of other factors that is messing up our genetic codes. So we have to be very open-minded to this in my reading. Now this book is not about genes. This is the really the cover of the book. If the book is published on Amazon, this is what the cover would be like. So you have 2 pages before the cover, and it's about the red and the green, with the red being the system of blood and the green being the system of the lymph. And the power of the red and the green simply speaks towards life being in the blood. That is where we get our continuous life, the oxygen, and of course the transfer of the nutrients, what we call the molecules, to various parts of the body from the liver. And my story starts with the small intestine. It starts just a little bit above the small intestine, but it is from the small intestine where molecules enter and go to the liver, and not from the heart. So I start blood from where blood really begins, and then the lymph, which is the part that would be explained clearly for those who do not understand. I have of course shown the DNA structure here just to re-emphasize that the DNA strands, I have never seen the DNA in my perspective. I've just been watching on computers. I wish I could have those opportunities to see things like the DNA and study the DNA after, just as how they did the genetic code project in 2011 there about the genome mapping. It's wonderful if people like myself, common men, could see and have experience to look at those things. We do have our own experience which could lend to the field of understanding the genetic code of humans. However, the cover here is trying to encapsulate the 2 areas of the blood and the lymph being in green, the lymph being the place where death is. So death is in the lymph, meaning the waste matter of man is poured out or being drained out through the lymph or the lymphatic system, and that is death. That's why it's so important to understand the lymphatic system. Being the drain of waste needs to be the drain of waste, which is the drain of the death or the dying things in your body, gets out through the lymph. On the other hand, we do know the blood system has waste, but it is living waste or waste materials, and the lymph is dead materials, are dead, and that is a total different story. That is like saying you're in your kitchen. For those who know about eating an apple, I think everybody knows about eating an apple. You peel the apple. Some people don't eat the apple skin, so you peel the apple, and you would call that skin of the apple waste. So you'd want to put it in your garbage bin or your recycling bin. That is on the red side. It's still something that is good. It's okay. It could be recycled. It's in the circular economy. But the waste we are speaking about here is that part which comes out after you eat the apple and you want to do number 2, you want to poo. That is the waste we are speaking about in the lymph. That is what is happening in the body. So we'll see the analogies as we go ahead, and this is where I will stop my video today. I am looking at water and waste management system as to bring about the analogy of the 2 systems, the lymph. And the focus of the book here is quite straightforward. It's just an illustration of the 2 circulatory systems in our body, which is the blood system, the one in the red here. We see a red circle going through some of the organs and cells and so forth and so on. So this picture here is an encapsulation of the blood system, of course the circulatory system, and then the green, which is the lymph system. Notice that I would have had little arrows pointing to the inflow of the blood to various organs or to the cells inside the organs, because at the end of the day the organs are just the collection of the cells, and it's the cells that needs to get the blood, because they don't use the blood, they use the oxygen and the nutrients in the blood, like the glucose, which is important for the mitochondria of each cell to consume. And of course, when the mitochondria, which is like this little green one down here, when this mitochondria consume the oxygen, the glucose in the presence of other materials, it puts out carbon dioxide, water, acids, and this is the poisons that are the waste material that needs to come up in the green and move into the lymphatic system to get back into the kidneys. So this is where we would be focusing this book, or the attention of this book. I do have some little footnotes, so when you buy a copy of this book, or if you're interested in buying a copy of this book, you hit me up to get a copy. You would have an appreciation of this. Of course, buying the book, it means you wouldn't be seeing this little animated parts. Like, you would have access to these things online on my website, which is linked in the bio below. So thank you for viewing today. Come back tomorrow. This is episode 1. Come back tomorrow as we go through this in more details following in the following pages.